Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Candy's Ice Cream Podcast. Today, we're going to be doing an interview with Greg Duda. This man has been in the ice cream business all his life. For the most part, he's established a successful ice cream company in the 1980s, 1985 to be exact, and ran it all the way to 2020. So he's been in the business for over 50 years. He started many successful ice cream drivers and ice cream innovators and ice cream business people. So, without further ado, I want to bring him on. We're going to allow him to share information and give us good gems to help us be a successful ice cream man. So, without further ado, let's bring him on.
Hey,
Hey,
buddy.
how's it going, Mr. Greg?
It's a beautiful day here in South Florida.
That's what's up, man. So what I want to do is I want to allow you to let the people know, how you got into the business. Basically, get your whole beginning story. What
Okay,
got you?
that's cool. I was I was born into the business. My dad was a good humor manager before I was born. Then he started his own business, and when I was about 14, I started working with him. He had about 100 trucks in the Michigan area. This was back in the late '60s, early '70s, and then he sold that business. We moved to Florida, and we started a business here in Florida. Florida was a little rough, but when he passed away, I moved back to Michigan, and that's when I started Polar Bear Ice Cream, and that was in 1985. Um, yeah, I was 30 years old then. I had
All right.
about 20 to 30 trucks at the time. You have a
Oh,
question? Go
okay.
ahead.
I was gonna say, tell us more about how your dad, how he had the business. Like, can you tell us like when you was younger, what was it like in your experience working with your dad? And.
Oh yeah, sure. It was well, I ran my business pretty much the same way I saw him run his business. He just had a lot more trucks. He had managers. I was pretty much hands on with everything myself. But I started doing simple tasks and simple things, working in the freezer and checking the fleet, the oil and the water on the fleet every day, the coolant
Mhm.
level. You have to keep your truck up. And then I got a little older and moved into the office and did clerical work. Because we didn't have computers back then. We just did it all by hand, keep track of what inventory everyone had and how much of a balance of ice cream they had so we could make sure they stayed right on. Business was really great back then because, the kids were all baby boomers. And
Oh,
the
okay.
baby boom generation really made the ice cream business very, very big. And that's pretty much my experience with him. Later on, I managed a couple locations for him. I was in he had a operation in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was there for a couple of years, and Memphis, Tennessee, for a couple of years, and then down in Florida until he passed away. So then, like I said, I moved back to Michigan and started my own business.
So what was it like when you first started on your own? How did you
Well, I had a lot of
bas-
experience, okay, obviously, because I'd been managing businesses for him.
okay.
And we had a business in Lansing, Michigan. When he died, we closed it down. I started one in Detroit. So I had help people that I knew, came along to work with me. So I already had some experienced people. I had a mechanic. I had some experienced drivers. Had my brother. We all not Charlie, the one you're thinking of, but my older brother worked with me for a while. So I hope that answers your question.
So when you first got on with your solo experience or solo career, what key things did you do to establish yourself? Like when it comes to actually like getting your first truck, growing from one truck to multiple trucks, and then basically would you say how many you had altogether? You had over 30 trucks. Like
At one
how
time
did you get
in
from
the
one
Detroit
to
area,
30?
my dad had a lot more than I ever had, but I worked my way up to about 30 trucks. So just buying at that time we used to buy older postal vehicles that went on auction.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the best route, but you can't do that anymore. They don't sell them anymore. So if you were to start a business today, if I was to do this today, I'd do it differently because the environment is much more different. The environment today, from the way I see it and talking to my associates that are still in the business, it's if you want to do a multiple truck operation, it'd be very difficult because the help situation, as you know,
Right.
unemployment, and back then there was a lot of people willing to work. Now it's a little bit different. So I don't know if you want to continue talking about how things were in the past, because to operate presently, it would be a totally different operation. I don't know what you can get out of learning from the past, except that I've made some mistakes, and fortunately, I learned from those mistakes. And one thing you don't want to do is charge too little for your ice cream.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be one of the questions I was going to ask, even with the pricing and everything. Basically, I was going to see, like, when you got started or whatever, and you started setting prices and things of that nature. How did you budget going from the one truck to the multiple trucks? How
Yeah,
did you?
I just continued. Well, I had just continued to take all the profits and then reinvest, just like any growing business. It was a slow process. I was in Detroit for like 7 years. When I left Detroit, I actually, when I left Detroit, we divided. I had 30 trucks, so we divided the fleet up. My brother Charlie took 20 and continued operating in Detroit. I just let him take over the trucks and the operation, and I moved to Akron with 10 trucks, and Jim was with me at that time. And then from there, I went to Cincinnati. I added on a few trucks along the way. I think I had 12 trucks when I first started in Cincinnati back in 1993. And then Cincinnati, I built that operation up to 20. Just adding trucks and buying freezers. There's two different ways to do it. I recommend going to auctions, like a Goodwill auction, to buy a van. The reason I would use a Goodwill auction or any vehicle auction like that is because the equipment's generally has been taken care of pretty well, and you just convert it into an ice cream truck. You can either buy a high top if you want, or you can just keep it at the same height, although it's difficult. And nowadays, like I say, it's totally different back 40 years ago than it is today. I would not use a cold plate freezer because of the expense. A cold plate freezer is a brand new one, probably costs $8,000 to $10,000.
Wow.
Where you can put it in your own inverter and buy a chest hold freezer and have that a really quality system for under $2,000. Okay. So we're talking about different time epochs right now, different time period. The population's different now. There were there had a lot of kids back in the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s. Now it seems like they all stay inside watching video games or playing video games or on their computer. You don't see them outside as much.
Right.
I don't know how I don't know how you would get around it. You just got to go to the most populous neighborhoods to sell ice cream. Kid population. But how you find that? Demographics. How do you find that? U.S. Census. I always decided if we're going to open an operation, I used to go to the U.S. Census from the most recent U.S. Census.
Mm-hmm.
You can get that online nowadays. I used to have to go to the library. Like if we were going to open up an operation like in another city, I'd, usually started with 10 or 12 trucks and then expand from there. I would go investigate the city to decide if the kid population and the demographics were good for the business. Because
Okay.
I'm sure if you've been in this business a while, you'll know you go into some areas, some cities, you don't sell any ice cream. Go into
Right.
other cities in the same metropolitan area, and you do well. Is that right, Candy?
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I always have to check out the demographics. You want a large kid population, and you don't want them too rich because then I don't know. My observation is the houses are too far away from each other. Denser populations with a lot of kids. That's where we used to do the demographics. And
So
that's how
when
we,
you was actually in a neighborhood or a city, how do you know that this neighborhood is a good neighborhood for ice cream? What would be some telltale signs after you said, okay, I'm gonna give a city a try, or I'm gonna give this
yeah, that's a
neighborhood a
good
try?
question. That's a very good question because you can look at the demographics and think an area is going to be really good,
Hmm.
and you get there and either they don't allow you to play music or it's the government's too restrictive, and that's why I always liked Cincinnati. Cincinnati was a much more business friendly environment. But you would there's some areas like I could tell you in Cincinnati, you would think Norwood's a great city because of the demographics. Not so
Hmm.
good. You never know until you get there. You never know until you get there, but you get a pretty good idea that you would think obviously. I can't think of other areas of Cincinnati. Like for example, you look at the demographics of Hamilton, say, "Yeah, that's a pretty good area," and it is. You look at the demographics of an area like Price Hill in Cincinnati,
Hmm.
and it is. You know, I'd say 75% of the times the demographics say there's a large kid population and they're not super wealthy, you'll do pretty good.
So you think it's better to sell in the rich neighborhoods or the more impoverished neighborhoods and selecting, and then how long would you stay in the neighborhood before you move on and say that it's not a good
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you know what? You can find out pretty quick if a neighborhood's not very good. And yeah, I never, when I was out there on the streets myself,
one?
I never wasted my time with rich neighborhoods. Like I say, the houses are too far apart, populations are less dense. I wanted the most sales per hour. So yeah, I would predominantly stay in areas that had a lower income, that had a lot of children. They seem to go together sometimes. I don't know. And yeah, like you say, how long would you go into a city, and how long would you be there until you decide it was no good? You learn quick enough. That's all I can say. And you give it a couple, 2 or 3 tries, and if you're not making any money, you're not going to. And the best time to explore any area is in the springtime. If I was going to, if I were a person getting started in this business, I wouldn't do it in the middle of the summer. I wouldn't wait till May or June. I'd start March 1st, almost
Okay.
anywhere you were. I remember that first year in Detroit when I had my own business,
Mhm.
I had about 10 trucks put together before the season started. And I'd used up all my capital. I got a load of ice cream on credit uh, from an ice cream company. Back then, you could get credit sometimes if you had a good reputation, which I did. At least my dad had a great reputation, so they knew I was his son, so they gave me credit. Didn't have any money left over because I'd put it into all the equipment, and it was I think it was March 1st, and me and a couple other guys were getting ready to go out and sell ice cream, and it started snowing.
Mm.
And they said, "Are we going out?" I said, "If we don't go out, we don't eat, so we better go out." And we all went out, and we did very well. Don't wait till the weather's nice in May, June, or July. Start right away. If you're going to be in this business, you better be out there March 1st. And I'm talking about your region, you know, even in Detroit. Like I say, March 1st, even in Detroit. So, and then if you get out early and go to an area, you can pretty much get a feel for, how well the area is going to produce throughout the year.
when you used to drive on the streets, do you think that it's better to sit or because now I done heard a lot of different ice cream truck drivers. Like I said, it's so many different styles in it, and we're gonna get into who are the best ice cream truck drivers that you had, your experience with you or whatever. But I want to know this been a topic. Do you sit in the area for a long period of time, or do you wait? And I mean, or do you keep moving, strike and keep moving? Like, what would be your say like in how to move around the city?
In the early part of the year of the season, when you don't have a lot of people ready to do the ice cream business, you're usually out on your own with a couple other people in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And as you add on drivers, you have to spend more time in the office at the business. Towards my end of my career, I was spending more time out on the street because my brother was taking over the business in a way, the administrative part of the business. I always used the same technique. I always knew where all the business was, of course. You got to know where all the business is. And if you're on a good long street, you start out slow, and then you can end the street a little bit fast, but always start out as a crawl. Because you'll find out that if you get stopped while you're selling ice cream on a street, more people will come out. You don't want to go faster than your music can alert them. And I always keep the music up. But I turn it down when I stop to sell because I don't want to annoy the people in whose houses I'm sitting in front of. So yeah, start out slow on the street and you can pick up the speed. And once you know your area, you know where you're going to get the businesses, where the business is at. And it all comes down to experience. But if you
So,
just
what was
start
your best time in starting your routes? Like, what do you say that like?
11
A,
o'clock in the summertime, 11
okay.
o'clock on weekends. Yes. It's funny. If you're really ambitious, you'll do very well if you get out early and stay out late. My experience is where I'd had people, that were driving for me there would be some people that come in early, like about 11 o'clock, and go out and sell ice cream. And why they do it? Because they were making money that early.
Mm.
Okay. They normally came back early after about 8 hours. They always looked at it as an 8-hour job. So they'd be the ones rolling up about an hour to an hour and a half before dark, when I always thought the sales were the best. Then you got people that got out a little bit later and they stayed out later, you know, an hour to an hour and a half after dark. I don't exactly recommend that, but if you start every weekend at 11 or on a school day, as soon as the kids are out of the school, be ready on the street and work until dark, not dusk, dark,
Okay.
you're guaranteed to make some decent money.
So, what do you think is the highest yielding periods of the day or times? What would you say, like from
I
this
guess,
side to this side
I'd
is
like
much
to say evening is always the best. That's why it always puzzled me why some people would come back from the route before dark. Or if you ask them why they did that, and say, "Oh, I've been out there long enough." These are the not very ambitious people, and not many people are ambitious. I mentioned one guy who I consider to be the best ice cream driver I ever knew. He used to drive for me in Cincinnati. He would be out there early, probably 10:30, and stay
mm,
out late. And when does the sales come the most?
it's
It
at
can come at
night.
any time. You just gotta be out there and be available for when it does happen.
Okay, so going into we talking about drivers, right? How did you select the best ones? Like, who did you say, like, you know what, this guy or this lady was going to be a great driver? So, what did you look for in drivers to let you know that I want to keep this person or I want to let this person go?
You mean interviewing?
Yeah, or just being out, because I know, like, say for instance, you had somebody that might have drove for you and be like, no, I don't want this guy driving for me anymore. Or
Oh yeah, yeah. You
yeah,
know, people
some
that
people
don't
that
produce.
yeah,
If you're in, I don't know if you're looking at this business from a angle that you're going to have multiple trucks and have people drive for you. That's totally different than you just being the only ice cream man. Okay, so from that perspective of having maybe a dozen, 7 to 10 to a dozen trucks, um, of course, first of all, you want to make sure you get people that don't have criminal records. You know, I used to, when I advertised for drivers, I would say background check required, and I would be guaranteed I got people that were pretty decent of character. That was always important to me. And then, of course, even then, some people some people are good at this, some people aren't. You can't really tell. You don't really know. My brother had a 70-year-old driver.
wow,
She wanted to drive for him, and he kept saying, "Well, I don't have a truck now." And then she kept going back to him every week, "I want to drive." Finally, one day he said, "Okay, you can go out." She was one of his best drivers, I'm telling you. And
70
even
some years old. Wow.
yeah, she was in her 70s. She loved the business. And then he decided, boy, I'm going to get all old drivers. And he used to have what he called Charlie, my brother. He used to have what he called the geriatric crew. They're all in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and they were very good. Old school work ethic, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to answer your question, if you're interviewing somebody, there's no way to know who's going to be successful and who is not going to be successful. Make sure they don't have a serious background, criminal background, because it'll hurt you, it'll hurt the business. I'm serious. I'm very serious about that. And anybody that wants to try it, I was always willing to let them try. Had to have a good driving record, though. I didn't want to ruin the truck.
Okay. So we're going into experiencing with the drivers. Who would you say, or who would you describe as was your best driver out of the 50 years? Who would you say is the best ice cream man that you ever? And what made him so great?
I had a lot of good drivers. One did stand out above all others. Phenomenal driver, and I guess I can mention his name, right?
Yeah,
His name was Greg Leppert and was in the Cincinnati area. He was just a phenomenal driver. What made him really good? He was very aggressive, meaning he didn't stop. He'd get out there and I mean, he was persistent. That's what it comes down to. He'd be out there starting early and work until dark.
wow,
I think that's what it comes down to. I mean, people can fool themselves saying I'm working when they're really not, you know?
right,
Or people can fool themselves saying I've worked enough when they really haven't, right?
right.
Just got to get out there and be out there as long as you possibly can. And
What
you
was
think,
his
oh, you'll
style
get,
like? Like
huh?
how did he sell, as you know, that you know of? Like what was his type of
Well,
style?
in that day, he was doing at least 50% better than the average. Okay.
Hmm.
That in itself, consistently, that in itself is outstanding. It's some guy you might want to try and get on your show. But I know what he did. He just went out there and did it. I don't think anything can substitute for persistence. You know, nothing can substitute for persistence.
What would you say, since Greg Leopard is your best or whatever, what would you say would be the worst driver that you ever had? Or not even gonna say worst driver, but
No,
what
no,
would make
I can
what
tell you
would
right now. I'm not going to name his name, but um,
and what
very
was an
interesting story.
experience that made you
We're talking about the Cincinnati area, probably the worst driver I had, and I don't know how he managed to work for me 2 seasons. He would stop selling at 6 o'clock every night, so he could go home and
Ooh.
start drinking a beer. He has to drink a beer after work every night. He would stop working at 6 o'clock every night, and his sales showed it.
Mm.
And he used to complain about people going on his route. I said, these people are doing twice as much as you are. Well, I'd be doing as good as they are if they weren't on my route. That's not true, because any two people have the same opportunity if they're in the same area, don't they?
Right.
You put two people in one area, they both have the same opportunity. But when one person consistently comes in better than the other, or one person is consistently at the bottom, it's the person that's at the bottom. That's their problem. So, anyways, yeah, it all comes down to just go out and do it. Don't take breaks. Just like Greg
So what
Duda.
was your worst experience since like with a driver that you had? Like you be like, man, this was crazy. I know I done had some bad experiences, but I know you probably got stories to where like, man, do I really want to keep doing this?
Yeah, I was very lucky when I look back because I was in this for so long. Nobody in my business got seriously hurt in an accident.
That's good.
Nobody got killed by someone shooting them. Nobody ran over a kid and killed them. Nobody even hit a kid. I mean, maybe kids got hit by cars, but they all seemed to walk away. They're quite flexible, Nobody got killed. Nobody got seriously hurt. I feel lucky. I bet you interview probably some people that have been in this business with 10, 20 trucks for as long as I have. And yeah, they've had some bad experiences. The only bad experiences I have are when people take your truck and don't return it.
Whoa.
Oh, you haven't had that happen, Candy?
Yeah, I done had it before. I done had it before.
You've had it before?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm sure everyone.
It's not fun.
If you got 20,
It's
20
not fun
trucks
at
and
all.
taking habits. Okay. I've been in Akron. I've been in Detroit. I've been in Cincinnati. I've been in Columbus. I've been in Cleveland, mostly in Ohio. I always get that happening at least once or twice while you're there. But
Mm,
I guess you're gearing this podcast towards people that want to have multiple trucks.
right.
Good luck. I think the business is a lot tougher. I think the business is a lot tougher now than it ever was for the
Okay.
reasons I already spoke of. Smaller kid population and more distractions, mainly like kids watching video games, playing video. You don't see them out in the streets like they used to. That's why you almost have to go into the poorer neighborhoods where they're more out
Yeah.
in the streets.
Turning around. Right, right. So when you looking into how the ice cream business is moving, do you think that for the ice cream truck, you think that it's a business that has a chance of coming back to the golden times, or do you think that it just has to be another way of taking the ice cream business? And in other words, do you think that like if you make adjustments to the model of the business, do you think that it's a chance to bring it back
Oh
to
yeah,
that?
there are people that have totally changed their business model, and they're not so much emphasized on selling in neighborhoods anymore, or as you like to term it, the streets. They're
Right.
more towards venues. The gentleman you interviewed earlier, Jim,
Yeah.
that's he's down from like he had 30 trucks in Dayton at one time. He's down to a handful. Just people from the past that used to drive for him that just don't want to quit. And he has a truck that he goes to special events, businesses. You know, that's where he's making. That's where the money is now. That's where the money is.
So you think it should be more of a focus on looking towards events and things of that nature than getting hundreds of trucks out there?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone could really get hundreds of trucks because I've known a lot of people in this business, and their fleet has dwindled over the decades. You know, some businesses used to have 100 trucks. They're out of business. Some businesses had 100 trucks. They're down to 10 or 20. You know, things change. You got to change with the times.
Okay. All right. So back to the things that make a good ice cream truck driver. So like basically on when you on the road or whatever the case may be, like the streets or whatever, what do you look for when you out on the road to say like, hey, I'm gonna go down this street or whatever? Because a lot of times when I do send people out to an area, they don't know where to go, even though you basically told them, hey, hit this neighborhood, right? What?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know, and as far as I've always been told, and it's pretty much true, a dead end street is a better chance of selling ice cream. Why? Because you get them coming and going. In fact, whenever I was out selling it, I would go down a dead end street when we have to turn around at the end, uh, faster than normal. And then turn around, and come back slow. I get plenty of business that way. So don't avoid those gold mines if you're doing this individually. I'll boil it down to this: if you're going to do this individually and you're going to do prepackaged ice cream, start the season as early as you can, because you know it always wanes after kids are out of school. Things slow down. Put in as much time as you can. Learn your areas. Have multiple areas so you don't kill them. This is assuming you don't have a lot of competition.
Right.
When I was selling ice cream in Cincinnati on my own, I usually go to Price Hill. That I don't know. Your average viewer doesn't know where that is, but that's a semi lower income neighborhood, a bit safer than some of the other areas of Cincinnati. So I didn't feel risky going there. I had plenty of competition, so I'd do the area twice just to try and keep the competition out. I do every street twice,
Mm.
sometimes 3 times. I'd leave the area. I'd leave the depot saying I'm going to be serving them breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I go to I go to areas in that part of the town 3 times in the day:
Mm.
morning, afternoon, and evening. Get business every single time. And what was nice, it was condensed, so I didn't have to waste a lot of time driving from one area to another. But if you got multiple routes, that helps.
Do you feel that you should have a schedule for each area, or do you think that it's areas that you can hit every day? Or what did you tell drivers so they wouldn't burn the area out? Because that goes on a lot of
Give them
times,
lots of
man.
territory. Give them lots of territory.
Okay.
That's it. And towards the end, I didn't have any routes. You go where you want. Like I told, we didn't have any agreed on area for any one person. Just go where you want. And they all seemed to spread out, So that worked out pretty good. I never did that. But to be successful in this business, I'll put it in a nutshell. You got to be persistent. Start early in the year, and you'll be surprised how much money you make. Keep your prices up. Don't be too cheap. Make sure your cost is below 30% of what you're selling the product for. Okay. You got to make sure don't go above 30%. We used to say 25, but I don't know.
That's what I wanted to get into also is actual pricing of ice cream on the truck.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good rule of thumb. Standard 30%. Yeah, keep your costs under 30% of what you're going to retail it for. And you could even do 25, but man, I'm telling you, I still keep in contact with some people still in this business, and they're shocked at next year's prices. You may not have seen them yet. They're absolutely shocked at how high the manufacturers have raised their prices.
Wow.
You probably haven't seen it yet, Candy. They're shocked. They've already got their pricing for this year.
Yeah.
They don't know how they're going to do it. I bet, you You got to keep the formula, or else you go out of business.
So in moving in that nature, do you think that it'd be better to like deviate from the lower class, since, because do you think that ice cream would eventually price itself out of the lower neighborhoods, or what can be done to where they might have a chance to be able to purchase ice cream, because everybody can't afford, $5 for a bomb pop every day, you know what I mean?
In the beginning
So
of the month, they can.
right.
Okay. I used to look at it this way when I was selling in the poorer neighborhoods. I'm competing against the prostitute, the tobacco store, the alcohol store, and the drug dealer.
Right.
That was my competition in the first week of the first of the month. Got it?
Right.
Because they get their money, maybe they get it twice a month. They get their money and it's gone within a week. Doesn't matter what it cost. I did a woman. How much a woman cost down there? They could double their price. They still pay it. How much the drugs cost? Doesn't matter. They're
Right.
still going to buy it. How much the tobacco costs? Who knows? They're still going to smoke it,
Right.
right? Until they're broke, they're going to spend every cent. That's in the lower income neighborhoods, and that's where you make most of the money in the early part of the month, right after the first of the month. That's the best advice I can give you. I will tell you this, and I'm going to have to get going here. If you want to talk again, we can do it probably.
Oh, we'll do it. Okay, we'll do it.
We'll do another one. I'm gonna have to get going here, but let me just tell you this: if I was gonna do this over again,
okay,
starting today, I would do soft serve, one truck,
soft serve,
and one truck, higher profit margins, and people love it.
okay, I think about that. Soft serve.
If I had to do this, if I all of a sudden became broke and I had to sell ice cream down here in Florida, I'd get a soft serve. I'd put together a soft serve truck and go out and make plenty of money. But I'm gonna leave you with that thought because I'm gonna have to get going. It's I have to get out there. It looks like it's gonna rain. We got to finish a few projects outside today.
Okay. Well, yeah, man. I guess whenever we can set up another day to do a part two. Like I said, we got about 5 people that's viewing right now. So thanks for everybody that's tuning in, and make sure you hit the like, comment, and subscribe. To help the channel grow. But definitely, I think with things you can bring to the community, man, it'd be a blessing. Because the ice cream industry is wide open for information, but a lot of people don't really know how this business goes. So that's what this channel is about, and that's what we want to do. So anytime, Greg, man, you feel free, and you got a chance to come on here and share some knowledge and information, or anything that's going on in the neighborhood, if you want to bring to the ice cream community, you're more than welcome to.
Well, thanks, Kenny. I'm gonna sign off now. Thank you very much.
All right, you have a good one, Greg.
We'll be talking. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.